critic of the Nigerian government, and that has seen him reject certain awards over the years. Right now, we understand that there is a bid to immortalize him. How best do you think that, say, the Nigerian government and the people too can best immortalize Chinua Achebe?
Well, people do. I mean, in all over the world, people do monuments, they do museums, they do. Those are set pieces, because you could have those places just being there, and because of us, we may not even visit those places. You won't be thinking, you won't be thinking, for example, that, oh, why don't you go to Ake, which has been, written about in some book. Why don't you go to Ogidi, which is, that's also something that we don't do. So there has to be a conscious effort. But I would rather immortalize those kinds of people through programs, through things that, we, as well as government. And when I keep on saying we, I think that, individuals who call themselves, writers, advocates, or cultural advocates, they should do more work than just have one or two symposiums around and talk. When you do programs, like, as you have in Muson Center, for example, on a regular basis, people are doing one thing or the other, When you do those kind of programs, it feeds in and puts those people, in our minds forever.
And they're not set pieces.
Yeah, if let's say you, for example, say you're running library programs and you are not having a particular structure, because this structure business doesn't work for me. You're building places where people will just look at them and they don't go to do anything with them. But if you have programs and say, every quarter in this university you have, workshops, that are devoted to building the craft of writing, African stories. Sort of, something that you do, that you ensure that you do several times in a year, so that it's an ongoing thing. It builds students, it builds, people who are not so conscious of writing. It builds a literary community, those kinds of things. But those things, elsewhere in the world, people will sit with government with proposals and deliver on them. Here, if anybody attempts to do that, it is hijacked by some government practitioner, and then they reduce it from active live programming that happens the year round to some state monument which nobody visits. That is the us that I'm
But we haven't
about.
Even tried. There is already an assumption that this is what will happen.
Because I've lived here, I've never lived anywhere else. I've basically witnessed us, starting something and not doing anything about it. So it's not, it's not just in literature, it's in, that.
It's really painful that now we're talking about Achebe. It reminds us of our literary appreciation, if it's dead or dying or non-existent at all. Mark talked about the AWS, and at that point in time it looks like a competition. It wasn't as if you went to school and you were told to read, but unconsciously everyone was reading.
We wanted to tick it off,
yes, every other book, to the extent that those who weren't with the AWS could also have the Pacesetters series and all the African writers, you name it. But today, we don't get a whole lot of feel of that anymore. And as you rightly said, sometimes the political tone can come in by saying that, well, we want to bring that back, the culture. How much of effort do we spend in bringing back that culture of reading and writing? There's something else. For CORA, and the last time you had, something that had to do with his 80th birthday,
yes. we dedicated it was 80 that year, and part of the conversation were around his books. Actually, what we do, is to use the individual rather than focus on trying to talk about him. We use the kind of things he's done as a theme for a conversation on certain books that resonate with what is written. For example, last year when we had the Lagos Book and Art Festival, he this valedictory is, that book has turned out to be his valedictory statement on nationhood, in a sense. The book came out, I think, about October, and we were going for the Book and Art Festival, and we had a colloquium, on the theme of the festival was narratives, literacy and the narrative of conflict. Now, you now have a book like, There Was a Country, which basically interrogated the war and, reviewed all of those issues. So it was clear to us that that book had to be in a conversation. Typically in a colloquium, we have about 4 or 5 books.
But we can't talk about Prof.
Prof.
But actually, without a mention of his influence in our political space. Trying to make a statement sometimes. There are different ways of protest to change things positively, and we've seen that from Professor while he was still here with us by rejecting national honors not once, twice. And
he makes, and that's what I'm saying. He makes those statements, but beyond making single statement, and that's the programming thing I'm talking about. The fact that he was hoping that indigenous publishing will work if he put his own star status on it, or the fact that he assembled, an association of authors to ensure that things always happen in the literary space. If Anna was really vibrant and rigorous, all this back to the book business that we're talking about, Jonathan wouldn't need that. And that's the thing. How do we build institutions that actually rise to the occasion that they are called?
Why are they not vibrant? Why do you think they're not vibrant?
Is ICANN vibrant? Is Nigerian Society of Engineers, vibrant?
They didn't set themselves up not to be vibrant, I imagine.
Yeah. Sometimes, people, when they come back from England or America, they look at all of us and we look sick. They are wondering, I guess that either because of the energy we expend on so many things trying to just get by, the whole thing that can, take us all out of that trap, we just drop by, we drop, and the best of us look funny. So the moment we set out of this place where everybody is struggling to just, hang in there, we tried. I don't know.
People say it's going to be very hard again for us to have great minds because, he came at a time when we really needed a mind like that, and they had the space, they had the opportunity, and so they had the space to be trailblazers. Do you agree with them?
Yeah, I think you are now sort of solving the problem. I guess that the quality of education that we have now compared with, Achebe went to, and all the major writers went to those schools, the government colleges. Either they are government college Maya or government college Ibadan or government. There are equivalents of them in places where there are no, in quotes, such government colleges like the Barewa College in Kaduna. Those elite schools, had the best teachers, and so, there's something to do with school in terms of, what to do. I talk about channels, for example. John Momo was in Baptist Academy. How come he was around the same period that Ahmed Yerima, who turned out to be director of the National Theatre or National Troupe, one of the major playwrights, also happened to be in that school around the same time. Influences from school, really are important. And if we don't get our education right, we don't get that thriving. I guess that maybe I've been running around the bush. Maybe you've just got, the solution to it. Just educate. China was having all that crises in the 40s, being attacked by Japan, having issues under Britain, much earlier. But he kept on educating his own people, if you've been educating your people 300 years, something will happen at some point.
So
and I
to
guess
some extent, that's the key.
I mean, I think that just underpins. I mean, I've been struggling